very excited to have Bryan here with me today. Bryan Eisenberg is an online marketing pioneer. He's a best-selling author and the inventor of persuasion architecture. He's a very popular keynote speaker on conversion rate optimization. How you doing, Bryan?
I'm doing fantastic.
For anyone who doesn't know, let's give the people an explanation of persuasion architecture and how you got started doing web analytics.
I think it's not far after we started working with each other when I first invented the term persuasion architecture. And the concept was that we had started doing traditional, using analytics to make simple changes to people's landing pages and to their websites. And we realized there were limiting factors, and the limiting factor was that we were only improving basically what's called the local maxima, right? You can only improve what's there so much possible. So if you've got a house that's a one-story shack, I'm not going to ever make it look like a mansion, right? It's just you just can't do it.
Right.
And if you keep adding stuff to the one-story shack, eventually it's just the foundation is not right. And so what got built out was more of a whole philosophy, essentially, of thinking of design of the experience from the customer as the center of the universe, which I think is really critical. It's actually what my upcoming book is about in many ways. But then planning out what each part of the experience is going to look like. Everything from every click through to every piece of messaging that's correct, every piece of content that you develop, every image is in the right place, to the exact design, to the flow, and then tying all of it back into web analytics, because what we're essentially doing is creating one larger hypothesis of what we expect an experience to be like. And when the customer deviates from the expected hypothesis, then we say, okay, what went wrong? Was it one of our assumptions, or was it something in our execution? And so you start with testing the execution. And I've never met somebody in a design process that didn't have more than one idea on how to do something right. You put those assumptions back in, you test them. If they don't move the needle, then it's probably one of your assumptions. And so then you have to come up with another hypothesis, fix the assumption, and then move on.
Yeah, and I think it's that kind of ties into conversion rate optimization and the different ways that you're not assuming how you should design something and you know what assumptions are, and allowing the customer really to tell you how to get the best results from your designs, or how you, and so you're defining different buying modes for different people as they come in. Right.
Correct, but it's also more than that. And I think that Alex, I think there's something that you and I have discussed, and I know it's kind of a nuance. Design is an actual language, right? There's a real science behind design, and unfortunately, what I see with a lot of people who are going about creating landing pages and even some of the commercial templates that are out there, they look okay, but they're not really following the science behind how people engage with a page, how people read, what little bits of alignment make a difference. And when they don't know the core principles that even the grand masters knew when they painted their paintings, right? There's nothing new about the rule of thirds. There's nothing new about the golden ratio. There's nothing new about understanding alignment and contrast, right? There's some core principles that when the designers who get focused in on this stuff and really understand it, they're really creating works of masterpiece that get so much better results than the average designer who's going to hack at it. And yeah, you can get some better improvements than what you have, but it's still not in an ideal state. And ideally, you want to work with somebody who really has that core understanding, that core vocabulary. And part of what we do when we go into companies, we work with designers, make sure they understand that vocabulary, because not everything in design is just for looks, right? There's real solid psychology behind it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And you have had some real you obviously started persuasion architecture, but you've had some real frameworks and principles that you've created in conversion. Can you talk about some of those principles and the and your strategy of optimization?
So, okay, so you're gonna make me out myself by admitting that I'm temporarily motivated to be permanently lazy. The reason Jeffrey and I have always come up with these processes is because essentially we didn't want to have to do them over and over again. What we have done intuitively, we had to kind of explain to others so that again when you're trying to figure out how to scale something, how do you do this? So persuasion architecture got born out of this. Like, okay, so what am I doing in my head when I'm creating these experiences? The conversion trinity came out from looking back at over, oh my god, almost 12 years of test results, just after I left my agency, to say, okay, what do all these things have in common? And so we developed the conversion trinity concept, right? Which is, every test that we've ever seen, whether it's on an ad improvement or a landing page improvement or a website improvement, whatever it is, or an email, they all included one of three things: either an improvement in the relevance to the audience, whoever that audience is, or the segment, whatever you want to call it, and an improvement in expressing the value to that audience, and then lastly, an improvement in building confidence and knowing what action to take for that audience. And once you wrap your head that basically all conversion improvements have to revolve around those three things, it comes back to the same questions as persuasion architecture, right? Who are you trying to persuade? What action do you want to persuade? Why would they want to persuade it, right? And it's just reversing the order a little bit. It's all built on very common sense. Direct marketers have known a lot about these. They've just been, some of these things have been reframed for the more modern digital age. That's all.
Yeah, and it's been something that I've practiced, and reading all your books, I led a team at a .com for a while, and I would literally teach all of these principles, and then when you put the Trinity together, it would just kind of put everything in place. It literally fit. So I want to break it down just a little bit further, with the Trinity, because it's just so important, even though it can be so simple. So someone is searching for something online, and they have a specific, a keyword that they put in. Then they click on,
even though it's not provided now.
Right, it's secure. So they have a problem. And then they scroll down the page. They find something that's maybe going to solve that problem. They click on that link, and they arrive at your site, your landing page, or however you're doing. So you need to create some type of relevance to the problem that that you're trying to solve, and you're doing that through design and persuasion.
Well, but more than that, right? Relevance does not only mean, I think a lot of people mistake this, matching the search query and adding it to the landing page. No, it's understanding what that query actually means to that person, right? That's the more difficult part. It's extrapolating, because what we do, when you have to understand the psychology going into a search engine, right? When you have a need, a want, or desire, you've got an itch that needs to be scratched. And just like when you scratch and you're trying to find exactly where that itch is, you may not know exactly what it is. You estimate it by putting in some words into a search box.
Mm-hmm. The triggers.
Right? Our job as good marketers is to understand, however they express themselves, what they're really looking to satisfy.
Right.
And then present that as relevance on the page.
Right. And then in the design or the action, getting them to actually do something so you can actually achieve those goals.
Right. Expressing that there's a real value, that they're going to satisfy their need through what you're offering. And then lastly, building enough confidence. I think that's the part that a lot of people miss. It's like, yes, I can make a call to action prettier and larger and stand out more, but if I haven't given the visitor enough confidence to buy, and that means in all the content that's there and stuff like that. And I think that's one of the biggest mistakes I see in a lot of B2B lead gen sites is, they go up, they throw up the simple templated landing page. You've probably seen thousands of them at this point, right? It's, here's the form, here's an image, here's six, little text, 6 bullet points, end of call to, a little verbal call to action, and page is done. You're right, header, footer.
Yeah. It's so common now these days.
Right, and it just, they don't satisfy the question. They're not really relevant per se. They don't express any value, and they have not built any confidence for any visitor. And so, yes, they convert people, because there's some people who come in already, with someone predisposed. They know your brand. They've been searching for this for a while. They've done the searches. But to really persuade the numbers that people should be looking at, 10, 20, 30% plus conversions, you have to focus in on that trinity.
Yeah, getting into the psychology and just not putting up these landing pages that collect email addresses and expecting people to, eventually maybe buy from you in the long run.
Yep.
And that kind of moves me into landing pages in general. I know you've spoken that your testing and your optimization shouldn't be limited to landing pages. So really, where else on your site can you utilize optimization practices? And
Well, it's funny, and I parallel the growth in landing page to the timing with social media, right? I mean, if you really think about how much those two trends kind of took off at the same time, it makes a lot of sense.
absolutely.
And just like in social media, you wouldn't have all your baskets focused in on, this one tweet or this one Facebook update or, this one Instagram picture or even just the account. You basically want to have a hub, right? A home where all of this lives. And I think people forget that the biggest part of the experience really is the website, which is the glue. I'm sorry, Austin allergies here. The website's the glue that binds all the brand's experience together, right? The physical store is part of this experience as well, but we see it a lot, right? People go to people go to someone's store and they look on their website while in store. So it's still the full website that's much more critical than just landing pages. Landing pages are good for starting that conversation for pieces that you haven't answered or are extraneous to your general conversation because they're focused in on one campaign or one area. But don't neglect that the core of the experience is your website, your call center, your store.
Mm-hmm.
That's the key to the customer experience.
Yeah, I think it ties into branding these days. You can't just put a logo up and expect it to, that be your branding. It's really
Mm-hmm.
the whole experience. In e-commerce, it includes your shopping cart, the checkout page, and then we talked about the thank you page even a lot.
And that's a big one. Like here's an example. How many landing pages do you think Amazon.com has created?
One,
Maybe, right? Maybe they've had one for the Kindle at some point.
right,
But I think actually they use their homepage.
right,
Except, to keep this in mind, and my next book's a lot about what makes Amazon so successful. They have over 303 million pages indexed in Google.
unbelievable.
Okay? Every one of those pages is 9, 10 pages long, rich in content, right? That help persuade buyers to buy.
Right. Because they're not afraid to get people to click and browse their site because, majority if they're not solving the problem on that one page, then they're going to another page. It's probably going to solve the problem.
And they have all kinds of elements on that one page that they landed on, right? To help move them through other pages to help them buy.
Yeah. Now you gave a really great keynote. I guess it was a couple years ago now on the top 21 secrets at the top of
Yep.
converting sites, and you were putting out these numbers of 35%, 40% conversions. Unbelievable. Is there a couple of those secrets that you can reveal to my audience?
Well, I mean, I share number one a lot, right? And number one, and it amazes me, right? It comes back to the Trinity, right? So number two in the Trinity is all about value. And it amazes me how many people on whatever page I land on, whether it's on your website or a landing page, still are not expressing, not their tagline, but a unique value proposition to the campaign, to the experience, on every single page of their website.
Yeah.
And if you just ask yourself as a marketer, right, have we expressed why you should be doing business with us on every page? Then you'll know why your conversion rate's not up at 20, 30, 40% like everybody else who is doing. So that's one simple one. Being extremely data-driven, right? The companies that seem to be focused on improving conversion rate and using more testing methods and using analytics and using A/B testing and using sites like usertesting.com and several others. The more methods you use to focus in on optimization, the more successful you actually are. Right. No surprise there. The other key to this, which is a great quote I actually just read this morning from Nolan Bushell from Atari. He said, everybody comes up with great, and I'm going to paraphrase the quote, right? Everybody has great ideas. Everybody showers and has a great idea. The difference between the successful ones are the ones who can get out of the shower, dry off, and get it done.
Right.
And so being great at execution fundamentally is what makes great companies. And so we've seen this, right? So for example, when Michael Jackson passed away, Amazon reconfigured their whole MP3 store within 2 hours.
Right.
Most companies can't call a meeting in 2 hours.
Right.
And it's what we realized after many, many years of working with clients in conversion optimization is that, the biggest factor between success and failure in this was the corporate culture in terms of execution and, desire for improvement. Right. So when I look at companies like Lower My Bills and Matt Coffin and Rob Gable from them, they hired us way early on before they got sold to Experian to train their whole company. They built that hunger, right? That everything's about improving the experience. Everything's about, getting more conversions. And, it's why they sold the company for almost $400 million.
Right.
So, I mean, there are attitudes that need to be had. And so those are some of the core secrets of these companies.
Yeah. And from those secrets, you had 5 takeaways. Can you give us a summary of some of those 5 takeaways, the steps of performing conversion rate optimization?
Oh, now you're gonna make me remember what I actually put back in that presentation. Wow, it's actually been at least a year since I've given it, so I'm trying to think back to what the 5 steps were. I'll give you a new 5 steps. How's that?
That's perfect.
And it'll fit very much in with where the new book is coming as well, which is number 1, realize that everything you do online is about your customers, right? It's always about getting a better understanding of who they are and why they do what they want to do. If you're participating in social media, again, look at Amazon, right? They're not tweeting incessantly and creating content incessantly to share on Facebook. It's not what they do, right? What they do, if you see how they've tied social into their experience, it's to understand who you are, what you share, what your contexts are sharing. It's getting to understand the behavioral clues that your participation in social are there, right? So everything is about deeply understanding your customers. 2, there's a lot of data out there, whether it's your own internal data or external data like that in social media or through third-party tools and stuff like that. If you've got a problem, you have questions you want to understand about your customers, go map out the data. Go figure out where it is. You don't need a data scientist today. Just figure it out. There are companies out there like the InfoChimps and the Alteryx who will help you build something as a proof of concept or as your own tool, essentially, to take those data sources and become more knowledgeable about your customers. It's really, really critical today.
Yeah.
3, you want to share and get your company realizing the importance of how this culture is evolving. And what's interesting is I like to point people back to Amazon, back when the days when I first started in the dot-com world in the early 90s, when Amazon was first launching in 94, 95, right? You think about who their competition was, right? It was Tower Records, it was Borders and Barnes and Nobles. And when I look at those companies today and I say, okay, I can understand why Amazon took those companies out, right? Being truly customer focused, bringing a much broader selection, being data centric, they use this medium to their maximum efficiency. They leverage social commerce and reviews before anyone else did. I get it. But then I put this question out there for everybody. A couple of years later, they're now competing with Walmart, the most data centric organization ever before them.
Right.
Not customer centric, data centric.
Yep.
Online sales for Amazon this past year exceeded $60 billion. Walmart this year online only did $7.7 billion.
Wow.
Okay. Amazon's capturing nearly 30% of every e-commerce dollar in the United States.
Wow.
Okay. Why? Because they're constantly innovating, they're constantly testing, and they're realizing that they've gotten their organization ahead of the curve. They were doing things in 2004 that I could share with you that would blow your mind in terms of how they were leveraging data to write their own pay-per-click ads, optimize the content in their emails.
Sure.
In 2004, not manually, by computer they were doing this.
Yeah.
Okay? And so the point is, today, with the accessibility of big data technologies that are out there, you no longer have 10 years to catch up with an Amazon.
Right.
Okay? Or with any of your competitors. We're speeding up faster and faster. So if you can't adapt in the next couple of years, it's just like those dinosaurs seeing the meteor, and it's closing in really fast. You need to change really quickly. So it's not about launching a couple of test reel here. It's not there. You need to move quickly through this analytics journey to get to that next level. And I'll bring you that. I'll kind of wrap it up with this analytics journey. There are 4 steps that I call in the analytics journey. Some people call it a maturity model. I'm not a fan of maturity in that respect, but I think a journey really makes sense. When people first start out using analytics in their business, they start out usually gathering reports about what happened, how many visitors, how many sales, right? What's. And they usually show up statically, a PDF, an Excel spreadsheet sometimes, a PowerPoint presentation, maybe even printouts. I've definitely seen plenty of those in organizations. And that's it. Nothing happens with that data. People look at it, they're like, great, we had this many, and nothing happens to the data. Eventually, you get a few people start asking, okay, so why did conversions go up this day? Or why did our traffic drop all of a sudden? And you start investing some resources and figuring out why things happen. That's the second step of the journey. Keep in mind, 65% of companies get stuck in the second phase of the analytics journey. 65%.
Yeah. They work in silos and
they work in silos. They can't figure out how to scale insights about their customers. Right. And it parallels where I see in most organizations, the most they can test is 2 to 5 things a month. So when you think about Amazon in 2004, the only time I've ever heard anybody talk about this, my friend shared at an eMetrics conference how they were testing over 200 things a month. Okay, but by the way, to put that in perspective, Bing, Microsoft, just got to that same 200 level this past year.
And it could account for their growth.
Okay, so when you keep it in mind that it takes this long, and most people haven't figured out how to scale insights, right? It's why the companies that have higher growth rates use more tools. There are more levels of insights there, right? Are you getting how this all kind of pieces together?
They learn more.
You learn more. And then you use those learnings to get to step 3 in the journey, which is where you can start predicting why, when things will happen, how things will happen, right? So you can start using predictive analytics for personalization, for customization. Right? Those are the things that get you to the next level. And then in the 4th level, where only about 10% of companies ever get to, is when you can start worrying about what makes things happen. And you literally can be like an Amazon or a Google, where you literally can just change a couple of knobs in your algorithms, right? Or in your campaign for the week, for the day, and say, oh, you know what? Sales are down. Let's tweak this. And all of a sudden you can increase revenue, at the blink of an eye.
Right.
And that's a hard level to get to. I'm not telling you you can't. But there's certainly some great technologies out there that'll help companies actually automate some of these things. There's companies like DataPop out there that'll take all of the products that you have and all the descriptions about your products, all the different ways you like to offer it, and they'll rewrite every single one of your pay-per-click ads dynamically using natural language processing.
Wow. So creating a system so you don't have to do it all yourself.
Because it's hard to scale with humans some things. So, when you start realizing that these are the technologies Amazon leveraged 10 years ago, you now need to start focusing on doing the same thing and getting your culture up to the right speed, or else you're going to have a very long and slow journey.
Yeah. Test for impact and results, and learn from those results and continue to raise the bar each time.
Exactly.
Working with your agency in the past few years, every single project I learned so much more each time, and you guys really pushed me to get to not only a great design, but to show those results and learn from each one to make it better.
And we've had some amazing case studies together.
Yeah, we certainly have.
We've said it before, and a few times. You've been one of our secret weapons because as an agency we didn't do any execution, right? We didn't do any of the actual work. I mean, we worked with copywriters and helped you get it edited, but we weren't doing any design, any of the coding. And any single time we needed to bring in, our ringer essentially to get the best design, we tried to get them to hire you and bring you in because we knew that we were going to get the best success. Even back when you working your corporate job, and I think it was the first time you came in to visit us, I remember having that conversation about how little you were actually charging and how much you're actually worth. So I'm glad to see the market has finally caught up to that thinking at least.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember that day like it was yesterday. I mean,
yeah, same here.
being originally from New York and my wife being my girlfriend at the time being in New York, I love to come and visit Brooklyn and see, the aliens painted on the walls and all the colors, the different rooms, different colors and stuff. So it was, and really what it came down to is people who got it. I was like, there's not really people who are doing this right now, and people don't understand that you just can't design a nice site and expect to do a refresh and conversion to go up. It's more than likely if you do a refresh, your conversion probably is going to go down.
That's exactly it. And the scary part is, I think, Alex, a lot of people don't realize how long we've actually been doing it and how few people back then actually were even talking about this. I know, today landing page optimization, a lot of people have written books about it. A lot of people are talking about conversion optimization. But, we're talking about, pre like 2003, 2004.
Yeah.
I think when we first met.
Yeah.
We were already at this for almost 5 years. We started our agency in 98.
Wow. Wow, it excites me, talking about this stuff, and I think we could talk about it forever. But you tease us with the book, so let's wrap up with that. So I'm excited you have something new coming out.
Yes, we don't have a title for it yet.
Okay.
The basic premise is, and it happened by accident actually. So in a lot of my presentations, everything from the 21 secrets you mentioned to my big data presentation that I'm doing currently, to the future shopper, to so many other of my presentations, I keep coming up and talking, a slide or two here about Amazon. Mm-hmm. And then just a few months ago, I got to go to Stockholm to see my good friends there, and I got to speak about what makes Amazon so successful. And Lisa Davis, who's been a writer for years, looked at the presentation, looked at all the other stuff we were writing about, and she said, why don't we write a book about what is it about this culture? What is it about the company? Because today we can level set with the tools. Like I said, there are tools like Datapop. There are content marketing tools that'll help you automate stuff. There's amazing technologies that you can leverage today. I'm not going to go into all of them. We'd be here for hours. But some amazing tools that you can be as competitive, Monetate, right, as an Amazon, right? They have a better testing platform than Amazon's today. Okay? So what makes the difference? Why isn't everybody doing what an Amazon does? Why is their email marketing so much better than every one of their competitors, right? There's so many things that they're doing right. How can they offer, within seconds, customer service on their Kindles? It's like, there's brilliance to all of this. And it's helping people understand what it is behind the processes and the culture that makes them so successful, whether you're in e-commerce, whether you're in B2B, because obviously they're one of the largest, web services companies in the world.
Yeah.
They sell a tremendous amount of B2B online. They're even producing television shows and movies successfully.
I know,
right?
Unbelievable.
So they're in, now Jeff Bezos is going into the newspaper business. He's a great publisher.
Right.
These principles universally apply, and we want to make sure that not necessarily from the inside, but from the outside in, how we make this work and how we made it work for other organizations throughout the years as well.
Wow, it sounds like going to be something exceptional.
We're excited by it.
Yeah. I think it's going to hit home really too. I mean, so many people are doing the exact same stuff over and over, and behavioral targeting and metrics is just so big now. And I think, design is not only important and persuasion, but the psychology of that culture is just so important these days.
Exactly.
Well, Bryan, I really want to thank you for your time and really thank you for everything that you've done for my career. You've been a mentor to me, and I've learned so much from you, and I look forward to learning more.
Well, and thank you for making us look good so many times.